Okay, so this is my very first screencast, and it's going to be on nested forms. So basically, I just learned about nested forms, so I thought I'd make a screencast because it's very complicated, and trying to like explain it to myself and explain to others maybe will be helpful. So basically, what I'm gonna do is make a simple Rails application. I'm gonna call it Rails. I'm gonna call it nested forms. So Rails new nested form, um, and this should generate a whole lot of files and folders, as you know. Um, so basically, what that's doing, my application is gonna have an author and book. So basically, a book is gonna have many authors. An author is gonna have many books, and a book is going to belong to an author, right? So I'm going to cd into my app directory. So cd nested form, open it in Sublime, and before we run bundle, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to add a couple of gems into my development and test environment. So gem pry Rails, and gem pry nav. Cool. So now I can run bundle, install, or just bundle. Um, so so like I said earlier, we're going to, since this application focuses on nested form, I'm going to run some scaffolds. I'm not going to do everything by hand, so I just want to focus on nested form. So we're going to do Rails generate scaffold author. So the author is going to have a name. You can specify it as name string, or you can just not.
What's the G stand for?
G is for generate. So we can type in generate, or we can keep it as G, right? So hit enter. That's going to create a controller, author's controller, a model, and a whole lot of other stuff. So wait, there you go. Wait. All right, so this is not. I'm gonna try it one more time. So Rails generate a scaffold author name, I guess specified string. See if that works this time. For some reason, it's taking a really long time. All right, there you go. So it generated all these files and directories for us. And now we're going to generate, like we said, a book. So generate scaffold book. And then we're going to pass it a title string. And then we're also going to say author references, because we said earlier that a book belongs to an author, right? So author references, that's how we create that foreign key. When you do the scaffold, you don't have to pluralize here. It will do it for you, right? So that's good. So we hit enter. So there you go. Did all that stuff for us. So we can take a look at it. If you go into Sublime, you can take a look at, you see we have a author and book controller. We also have some models here, and it also generates some migration for us, right? Which we're going to have to run breakdb migrate later on. But before we do that, I want to go into my author model, and I'm going to say has many what books, right? And then if you go into your book model, you see that you already set it belongs to for you. Why did it do that? Because we earlier told it to over here, right? So that was done automatically for us. So one thing that I want to add in here is I want to validate presence of title, right? A book has a title. Basically, I'm saying like don't create a book into our database if a book does not have a title, right? And I'm going to do the same thing for author. Say validates presence of name, right? An author has a name, so that looks good. So now I want to run. I want to run my migration. So run db migrate, rec db migrate. Sorry. So cool. So now what we're gonna do now is to run our server and take a look at our app in the browser. So if you go in the browser, if you go localhost 3000/books, there you go. So we see here we have no books because we haven't created any books yet. And same thing for authors, we don't have anything. So all this nice thing that you see here was generated for us by the scaffold, right? We didn't have to do all this nice link over here and all that stuff. The scaffold did that for us. So next thing is I am going to actually create an author and give it like 2 books or something. So to do that, I'm going to go into my console, rel-c, which stands for console. And now if I do author.all, as you see here, we have no authors. So I'm going to create an author, Paulo, for Paulo Coelho. It's one of my favorite authors. So I'm going to say author that create, pass it a name for Paulo Coelho. I think that's how you spell his name. So I'm going to create an author, right? So we have it. This is the very first author we made. So ID 1, name, created that, updated that. And now I'm going to add some books to the author. So I'm going to do Paulo.books, so I can build books on top. So this is like a nice syntax. So you go into books and then you build a new book. So I'm going to pass it. The book has a title. So one of my favorite books by him is called The Alchemist. So I'm passing the title Alchemist, and then hit enter. And now if I do Paulo.valid, it's going to say true. Well, I have to save it actually. Save. Right. So now I saved this book inside our books for Paulo. So if I do Paulo.books, we see that we have one book, The Alchemist.
So Paulo is an instance of the author.
Yeah, that we just created, right?
Also, when you build something through a relationship, so Paulo, you build the book name. You have it's basically a .new. That's why you need to save it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Because we're now adding a new book inside for our author, right? We're adding a new book because the author has many books. So we're adding a new book for that author, so we have to save it. It's kind of like a .new. You have to specify save. If you didn't specify, if you didn't do save, it wouldn't save into our database, basically. So now I want to create another book. I want to create like 2 books. So I'll do Paulo.books.build a title, book has a title, and I want to pass it 11 minutes. That's another book by him. 11 minutes. So now if I do, let's say I don't save it, right? What will happen if I do Paulo.books? So it only gives us the first book that we created, right? But now if I save it and I do Paulo.books, now we have both books, right? So now let's go to Firefox. If we refresh this page, we have Paulo, our author that we just created. If we do show, it's not showing here his list of books. So this is what we're gonna have to do now in our show page. This is kind of like the show page for the author. So if you're going to show.html.erb for the author, go into app, view, author, show.html.erb. You see, it only shows us his name, right? But I want to also show the list of books, right? So H4, say list of books, right? and then I'm gonna do so we have this instance variable over here. So going to ERB, I'm gonna say at author that books that each books that each do. So for each book, um, I'm going to, let's say, print that into a p tag, book that title, right? And I kind of want this to only show if the author has a book, because maybe the author doesn't have any books, right? So I want to add like an if statement over here. Say if author that books that present, right? So present is like a nice Rails method. It's kind of like that, the opposite of that empty for Ruby. So if there is something in books, then show this. If not, don't show this at all, right? So if you refresh it now, we have The Alchemist and 11 minutes. But also what I want to do that's kind of nice is I want to create this, make this into links to their show page, right? So I'm going to do, so here.
Before you go on, so present is technically like an if statement, so could you put an else statement into that?
Yes, you could. So here, if it's present, do this, or we can do like, actually, let's just add that here. You could do like else, maybe like a H5, be like, no books for this author yet, or something. I don't know. Oh, the quote, right? Oh wait, we can just not have a quote, so this is not really ERB. So let's try it. Well, why don't we just go back, create a new author, call it like, what's the author? Kurt. Let's just keep it as Kurt. Kurt V. Create author, right? So as you see here, we have no books for this author yet, because this author we just created does not have any books, right? Let's go back. But if we click on Paulo, we have his books. Like I was saying earlier that I want to make these into links. So here, this is the book title that's showing. I want to create this, I want to create a link. So I'm going to use the link to, and then link to, this is what it's going to show. And then here, I'm going to say book, right? So Rails knows that this means go to the show page for this specific book. It's kind of cool, I think. So if you click here, it takes us to the show page, right? But here, the author is showing this weird author object ID thing. I want to actually show the name for this author. So this is in books, right? So that means the show page for books. So I'm going to go in my Sublime, go into books, show, and here instead of book.author, I want to say book.author.name, right? So if we refresh this, we have the name. And I also want to make this into a link. You don't have to, but actually I'm just going to leave it. It's not really that important. But now, to the main event, nested form, right? If you go back, here it's also showing this weird thing. So this is the index page, as you can see here, books. So you have to go into the index page for books. And then, so books, index page, and instead of book.author, I want to say book.author.name. So refresh that, and everything's cool. All right, so the main thing that I wanted to show you guys was nested form. So basically, if I click on edit here, let's say for Paulo Coelho, I click edit. I also want to be able to edit his books. You know what I'm saying? So here it's only showing me the name for this specific author. I want like another field here for each one of his books, right? I want to have like a field for The Alchemist and a field for 11 minutes. And I can, what if I misspell The Alchemist or I misspell 11 minutes? I want to edit those. Or maybe like that's not the actual book that I wanted to type in. I want to edit it on the author. So I want to have a form for book inside the author. A form that's going to update the book that is inside the author form. So it's like a nested form inside the author's form, edit form. So if you click edit here, so the way you can do that is you have to go into author, and this is the form that generates everything for us. So this is where we're gonna have to like make changes, and this is like the main thing over here. Everything here deals with errors. If there's any errors, then show them. If not, blah blah blah. But this is like the main thing, right? This is the submit button, and this is what we see right now. Like this is the field that we see right now, right? So I want to add. So F is our form. So I'm gonna add fields for books, and this is how you add a nested form, right? By using this fields for. So you say add a nested form for books, because we said an author has many books, right? So fields for books do, and then we pass it like we did here, how we did F here. We want to pass it the form attribute for our book form. So we can call it B for book form, or we call it book form, right? I'm gonna call it book form, right? All right. So and okay. So now, what does the book have? The model for the book. A book has a title, right? So basically the same thing that you would do, like if you were creating a form for a book. So you have to do book form that label for title, right? And then book form that text field, right? Text field for title, right? So this is going to create this nested form here, which is specific to book inside our form, our author form. So it's like nested. Why it's called nested form, I guess. That's one part. So let's see if this actually shows something. Right. So we show here the title, right? It's cool. I'm actually gonna add some breaks over here. Cool. Actually, add another break here. Cool. Yes.
What is the break tab?
Oh, the line. This is like breaks a line. So before, when I didn't have the break, this field was right next to here. So when I added the field, the break next to the label title, it brings it next to the next line, pretty much. So, so here, as you can see, when we click edit, we have an empty field. I kind of want this field to show The Alchemist, and I want to see like another field for what? 11 minutes, right? So I can actually edit those. So this is kind of like empty, like I don't know what this is doing. I don't know what this is doing. So like we have to tell our author model to accept nested attributes, right? Because right now we just have like a field. It's just a field. It doesn't connect to anything. We have to tell our author model to say, okay, there's some time when there's going to be a form and there might be nested attributes. I want you to accept those, right? So you want to go into author.erb and we want to say accept nested attributes for books, right? So then once we've done that, if we refresh the page, as you can see here, we have The Alchemist in 11 minutes, right? Which is cool. So now let's see if we can actually edit those, right? Let's see what if you add another book by Paulo. It's called Brida. You can add Brida here and then say update author, right? It did not update, right? Why? Well, let's go into, this is edit, right? So when we click update, what happened is when we click update, it takes us to what? The update action, right? This is where the update actually happens, in the update action. So maybe we can add like a binding that prior to the update action and see what is actually happening there. And why is that? Isn't it actually updating our books, right? The way we want it to. So if we go into our action, controller, authors action, and then we go into update because that's what we're currently doing right now. So if you do binding dot pry, right? And let's try it one more time. Brida update. So as you can tell here, we're now inside binding.pry. So how does update actually update things? It gets past the params, right? Params, it looks at the params, it looks at the values inside the params, and then it makes it update. So I'm gonna say look at params, right? But as you can see here, it doesn't actually get past params, it gets past author params, right? Because that's safer, right? But as you can see here, we have in our params, not author params, we do have the books attributes, and we do have Brida, which is our, right? Which is our updated version, right? And we have the ID, because the ID is how the book is gonna know which book to update. It's gonna look to the whole list of books, the ID, and it's gonna change that ID to the new title. The book for that specific ID is going to change to your new title, right? But if we do author params, we see that we only have name. So we need to tell, as you can see here, we have unpermitted parameter books attributes. So we have to permit books attributes, right, into our params. So if you go back to Sublime and author params over here, we want to permit books attributes. So we run the books attributes, right? And then we want to permit name and ID, right? Because I mean title and ID, right? Not name and ID, because a book has a title. Because if you look back here, we have book attributes, title, and ID, right? So we want to permit those. So if you do continue, and then we try it again, edit. Let's say Brida, and we update. If you go back, we're still inside binding. Now, if we click author params now, we now have books attributes. Before it was just name, if you saw it, right? Now, since we permitted it, we now have books attributes, right? So, if you do continue, and then we go back to here, we see that it updated to Brida, right? Updated to Brida. So that's cool. Now, for one more feature that I want to add, I'm going to actually delete this binding.py. We don't need that now. If you go back here, if you click edit, so we have our current books, right? But I kind of want to add a new empty field for like, what if you want to create a new book, right? Not edit a previous book that we already have, but actually edit this author by adding a new book, right? So an empty field here, right? So how can we do that? The way we can do that is what actually generates this edit page. This edit page, this edit.html.erb gets generated by our edit action, right? Rails knows that whenever we click edit, it goes to this edit action, and this edit action renders the edit.html.erb, right? And then before it renders that edit.html.erb, as you can see here, before action, it set the author. So it sets the author by, so it goes into this method, at author, and it finds the author by the params, and that's how the edit page, if you go into our form here, view form, that's how this form knows about this author here, because it gets set inside here, set author, which gets called every time we get to edit action, right? But anyways, what I'm trying to get at is whenever we show these things, is because this author has a a book, right? What if we were to create like an empty book with no name, right? That would show here as well, but it just won't have any name, right? And then we can kind of like edit the name of the empty title book, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, wouldn't that not work because you validated that it needed a title?
Right. But there's a way we can bypass that, and I'm gonna get to that, right? So if we do like author that books that build, right? So this is gonna build like a new book for this author, but we're not passing it any name. It's gonna be empty, right? So if we go back here and then we refresh this, author, oh wait, sorry, not author, add author. So this specific author that books that build, if we refresh this, now we have this empty thing, right? But let's say we don't want to create a new book, we just want to edit the ones we have here. So let's edit this back to 11 minutes, right? But we don't want to create anything new. We just want to edit the old ones we have. So like you said earlier, we got an error saying that book title can be blank, right? So how do we bypass that? So this is actually really easy to do. Is by going into our author model where we told it to accept nested attributes, and we have to tell it to reject the attribute if the title is blank. So like just get rid of it. Don't use it if it's blank. So like it doesn't we don't get that error. That makes sense? So the way you do that is reject if I actually forgot a little bit the syntax, but it's like a quick Google. You can just Google this really quick. Probably just had it. Oh, there you go. I have it open already. So reject if this is like a block. If the attribute, right, title is blank, right? Because we said the book has a title, right? So if the book title is blank, like we had here, if it's blank, reject it. So by adding that, you shouldn't get that error anymore. So if you click on update now, let me refresh this. Go back to show and come back here, edit. So type in 11 minutes, click update. So we still get that error. Book title can be blank. Let's see. Oh, I did not save this. Okay. Awesome, because I was getting scared. Why are you not working? All right, so cross your fingers and hopefully this works. There you go. Works, right? So let's go back and let's check for new author, right? If you create a new author, maybe when you create a new author, right, you want to also create a new book at the same time, right? Easy. What's the name of the author, for example? Does anybody know the name of the author? Barack Obama is an author. He wrote a book. I guess you can use Barack Obama. But anyways, what I'm trying to get at is we want to do the same thing we did for edit. So like the same way we had the author that books that build. Because what generates this page is the new action, right? So we want to do at author that books that build, right? So if you refresh this, there you go. So we can do like Barack Obama, and if we leave this empty, it should just create the author with no books. And it says here, no books for this author yet. If we edit, we have this, we can add like, I don't know, book by Barack Obama. It's not really that serious. But Dreams from My Father. How did I not do that? Actually, my dad read that book. Dreams from, oh, just Dreams. So there you go. List of books. Huh?
You can edit it though.
Yeah, you can edit it, right. So if you can edit Dreams from, not from my father. And then you can add a new book. What's another book? by Mr. Obama. The Audacity of Hope. The Audacity of Hope. There you go. So update. You have 2 books. If you click on it, we have the show page here. Let's go to the index for books. We have Dreams from My Father by Barack Obama, The Audacity of Hope by Barack Obama, blah, blah, blah. Works great. So that's it. Thank you for, yeah, thanks.